Welcome to a new episode of Eating Maine History, where we dive deep into the Maine State Museum's collections to bring you the old, weird, and maybe even tasty foods of Maine's past. This episode's recipe is brown sugar pumpkin bread, a recipe from mid-1900s, found in the cooking favorites of Pleasant Valley Grange out of West Bethel, Maine. If you've ever visited the Maine State Museum's At Home in Maine exhibit, you may remember this recipe, which is part of our 1940s kitchen display. Pumpkins are native to North America and are one of the oldest domesticated plants, having been around for over 7,500 years. Pumpkins were an integral part of the early native people's diet. The early varieties of pumpkins were small, hard, and bitter, but their solid, thick flesh made them ideal for storing during cold weather and when food was scarce. Pumpkins are very versatile in their uses for cooking. When ripe, the pumpkin can be boiled, steamed, or roasted. This bread features pureed pumpkin, brown sugar, and warm spices. This episode's chef is Joanna Torow. Joanna loves cooking, but isn't much of a baker. Let's see how she does with a recipe that never fails, at least according to recipe contributor Marie Witter.
Hello, my name is Joanna, and we're going to be trying out a recipe that's called brown sugar pumpkin bread, and it's from a cookbook in the Maine State Museum's collection, and it's called Cooking Favorites from the Pleasant Valley Grange. So one of the reasons that I chose this recipe is that I thought it was really a celebration of the season. We're in autumn right now, and I thought it would be really cool to work with pumpkins. This is actually a fruit. Fruit comes from the flower of a plant, whereas vegetables come from roots and leaves and the stem of a plant. So that's the difference. So let's take a look at what this recipe is going to need. So we've got our ingredients all laid out here. You could, of course, if you're ambitious, take a cooking pumpkin, not just one of those big ones, but these little ones that are made just for eating, and you could roast it down. But from my research, it does take a little bit of time, so we're not going to do that this time around. So we'll just use the canned product. And we've got 2 cups of this. Actually, the can is 15 ounces, and so it's a little short of 2 cups. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's pretty minor difference. Let me just take another look at this. It says to mix in a large mixing bowl, which you've got the first 7 ingredients. So that puts us all the way from flour, brown sugar, our soda, salt, cinnamon, nutmeg. So let's get that in the bowl. Okay, so this recipe comes from a Grange cookbook, and Granges in Maine were pretty popular. They were kind of part of the rural communities, starting, I think, it's 1874 when you have your first grains coming into Maine, and those would be supporting your rural communities. They were social outlets, and they were a means of economic cooperation, farm co-ops. So let's get our other ingredients in here. We need our baking powder, a bit of salt. Granges, here's our spices, also were political organizations to help farmers come together lobbying over issues that were important to them. Things like rural mail delivery, which if you're, isolated, you want to be connected to the world. That was an important issue for farmers and rural communities. Okay, I was just mixing this together and I noticed that we're already kind of full up on the bowl, so I probably should have gotten a larger bowl. So let me switch that out before we go any farther, and we can do that and not come up with a problem in the end. I'll just put that in the sink. This should give us plenty of room now. See, this is part of me being an inexperienced baker, so let's give that another good because now what we need to do is put a well in the middle of it and make room, and we're going to put in the rest of our ingredients here. Okay, so let me start with our eggs. So I'm just going to give that a quick mix and then add some of our other ingredients here. So I've got the pumpkin in and I've got our eggs. I'm going to add our oil. Remember, we've got 1 cup of oil, and we're going to do our water. We've got 3/4 of a cup of water here. So add that in, all of our liquids, right? And I'll give this a good mix, and then we will add the pecans at the end. I'm going to add in our chopped up nuts and give that just a loose stir, and then we will move to our electric mixer just to make sure that everything is fully incorporated. So believe it or not, electric mixers were invented by an American, Rufus Eastman, and that was as early as 1885. The mixers that we're used to seeing today, that kind of model and design, really didn't come into popular use until right around World War I in 1914 or thereabouts. Okay, so my spatula, and let's try this out. So this looks well incorporated now. I think we did a good job of getting us started with the stirring that we did. We don't want to overmix it. I realized the one thing I forgot to do, which also the recipe doesn't mention, is to set our oven for 350. We should have been warming that up. So let me do that right now. You can put this on bake. I have prepared our pans. That's the recipe instructs us to grease them up with a little Crisco. It specifies cold Crisco, and then also to flour it. So we will make sure that the loaves come out as easily as possible. So I've got that ready to go. I put it on another sheet pan, a small one, so that it's easy to put into the oven. The other interesting fact about the recipe and pans is that it said an alternative was to use 4 1-pound coffee cans, which I thought was kind of interesting that we might want to try, but since I am not a confident baker, I thought we'd get the recipe down pat before we went on and tried something with coffee cans. And we can now very gracefully, at least attempt to gracefully, fill up our loaf pans. There's definitely a lot of batter here, and it is a great color. I'm really loving that. Really gives you that pumpkin-y feel to it. Hopefully it's good, because this recipe, actually the last line on the recipe says never fails. And of course, as a non-experienced baker, I'm really hoping that's true, and that it's going to taste good. And let's see, I have a feeling that this is way too moist and that we're gonna need more time. So put this back in, close our oven, and that's pretty, it looks pretty moist there. So I'm gonna give it another 15-20 minutes and then check it again. She did say between 45 and 60 minutes, so we're on the low end of that right now. And see if our bread is finally done. Oops. Okay, certainly look done. Get our tester here. Let's see. Yep, that one's coming out clean. And so is that one. So I think that we are ready to go. It looks like our bread is done. Just a note that the recipe actually said that it would be 45 to 60 minutes. This actually took longer. So it took an hour and 15 minutes total before we had our tester come out clean with no wet dough. So just something to keep in mind. Now that they are out of the oven, we are going to let them cool for about 15 minutes, and then after that, the instructions and the recipe tell us to take them out of the pans, wrap them with aluminum foil, and put them in the fridge, and that they are actually better after 2 days. So we're gonna test that. So we have our fresh bread here, and I also have a loaf that I have made a little over 2 days ago, and we'll see which one's better. Okay, this is the moment of truth. I'm gonna taste the fresh one first. Very moist, very pumpkin-y, but it has those notes with the warm spices. Okay, so this is the one that we made earlier and put it in the fridge for over 2 days. So let's see if it's aged well. I do taste a slight difference. I think I like the one that just came out of the oven a little bit better. But everybody has individual tastes, so you never know what you're gonna like. You might want to try it. Okay, so that is our brown sugar pumpkin bread. I hope that you try it out and see what you think. This certainly was much more of a success than I was expecting. If you'd like to try the recipe, please go to the Maine State Museum's website to get the recipe and more information. And you can find more things about our collection and lots of great activities to do. Be sure to keep an eye out for our next cooking show, and thank you for watching. Our bread is finally done. Oops. Our bread is done, and according to the recipe, we're going to let them sit here for 15 minutes while they cool. And after that, we're going to take them out of the pans and wrap them with aluminum foil and put them in the fridge. That's what they say for our recipe here. And then we also, sorry.